Hello all, I'm Ram and welcome to part 3 discussion on good living practices. In the first two videos, I mentioned that disease, poor health and suffering primarily arise when the emotions, mind and body are out of alignment and function independently of one another. In other words, if you only focus on your body and pay very little attention to your mind or emotions, or you're doing everything correct for your body and mind, but your emotions are out of place. I call this a fractionated life. Leading a fractionated life will only cause ill health and suffering. Instead of leading a fractionated life, you need to keep the mind, the body, and the emotions in sync, functioning as one unit. With the right set of tools, you can engage your emotions, mind, and physical body simultaneously to achieve optimal health and wellness throughout your lifetime. Good living practices are tools that keep these three entities, body, mind, and emotions, in sync. For optimal health and living, good living practices need to be practiced daily, 24/7. Now, in part 1, I talked about eating and how just the act of eating can keep the emotions, mind, and body in sync. In part 2 of this series, I talked about chewing the food for a count of 30. In doing so, eating becomes an act of meditation. In this video, I will talk about timing the food, that is, when to eat the food. Now, just as a watch or a clock tells you the time, similarly, there are clock genes in our body that regulate every activity that we do. There are clock genes that regulate the eating process as well. So at noon, when the sun is at its peak, the digestive clock becomes very active and triggers the I feel hungry signals to the brain. The brain then conveys this message to the stomach. Thus, at noon, digestion is at its strongest. Similarly, digestive capacity is low during dawn or in the evening when the sun is either rising or setting. Good eating practices require for you to eat at the appropriate time. So, eat your midday meal anywhere between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. Make sure you bring in all the eating practices that I mentioned in part 1 and part 2 of this series. In addition, avoid eating in between meals. That is, try to stay away from eating or snacking frequently. Maintain at least a 3-hour gap between 2 meals. Give a 3-hour gap between dinner and sleep. After you finish your dinner, avoid eating or drinking any caloric foods. Try fasting for at least 12 hours. So let's say if you had dinner at 8 p.m., avoid eating any caloric foods or beverages until the next day morning. So you may eat the next day at 8 a.m. or later to maintain a 12-hour fast. A fasting period of 12 to 15 hours between the previous night dinner and the next day morning meal is highly recommended for optimal health. Thus, a fasting window of 12 to 15 hours between the last meal at night and the first meal the next day morning is highly beneficial for the emotions, the mind, and the body. During this 12 to 15-hour fast, the brain cells switch from sugar to fat digestion. This leads to the production of several feel-good neurochemicals that have numerous protective effects on the emotions, mind, and the body. How would this fasting schedule look like in a practical scenario? For instance, take my case. I finish my dinner by 7 p.m. I don't indulge in any snacks or any beverages after dinner. I sleep at 10 p.m., so I'm maintaining a gap of 3 hours between my dinner and sleep. Next day morning, after I get up, I don't immediately rush to eat or drink a beverage. Instead, I try to break my fast only around 9 a.m. by having a cup of tea. Sometimes I even skip this morning tea and try to have an early lunch around 11 a.m. Thus, I ensure a fasting period of 14 to 16 hours. If I can do it, you too can. A fasting period of 12 to 15 hours has numerous health benefits at the level of emotions, mind, and body. To know more about these health benefits, read my book, Good Living Practices, which is available on Amazon. Remember, your health is your personal property and you need to take good care of your own health. So watch this video, follow the instructions, and try to inculcate this timed eating practice. Do it for 1 week and write your experience in the comment section. Please do share this video with your friends and loved ones, since health is each one's personal property and everyone needs to take good care of their own health. And don't forget to check the part 4 of this good living practice discussion, in which I will add one more good living practice tip. Until then, namaste.